Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. Delighted to be joined by Ben Bacardi. How are you, Ben?
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good
Doing
evening
good.
and happy Christmas. We're covering the whole of life spectrum at the moment. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Long Island, New York.
We love Long Island. I was there very recently for the International Peace Day in Times Square. We had a big event down
Okay.
there.
Yeah, not too far from where I am. 20
Oh,
minutes.
what wonderful stuff. Now, your music sort of feels like a bridge between the soul of the 60s Motown and the grit of 80s hip hop. Take us back to those Fresh Meadow days when you were growing up. What do you remember about your childhood?
A more simpler time in the 80s, 90s where, you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have social media, you just had bicycles and you played outside and, when it's time to go in, you heard your parents calling you to come in and that was it. You didn't really it was just more of a much more simpler time of life.
And
As,
it
as
felt a lot safer as well, didn't it?
yeah, for sure. You didn't hear about so many at all. There was no shootings, there was no just a lot of no bullying. If there was bullying, it was to your face, and then you would see the person the next day.
Yeah.
It wasn't like on your phone and and all this. It was just a totally seems like 100 years ago.
Yeah, no, you're so right because the bullying it follows people home now, doesn't it? You'd finish it off in the schoolyard or whatever, and then go home to the safety of whatever family life you had. But you were shut away. Now these things follow us everywhere. We're
Yeah,
stuck, aren't we?
you wake up in the morning and you get 100 emails, 100 text messages, and you're like, oh, you can't escape.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So a happy childhood, a lot safer childhood. What sort of music do you remember listening to whilst you were growing up?
The Beatles, the Beach Boys, Billy Joel, Madonna, Michael Jackson, and then once I got a little older, that's when hip hop started more into my life. Run DMC, LL Cool J, Tribe Called Quest, Wu-Tang Clan. But prior, even during that time in my house, it was a whole mix of I have older sisters, so it was a lot of Z100 from New York, a lot of different pop and mix of different sounds.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the key, isn't it? It's that sort of glorious fusion of different sounds. Is there a particular song you suddenly thought when you were growing up, look, this is the first record I bought, and this is what really changed everything for me?
When I was in fourth grade, there was a lip singing contest in my elementary school, and I performed Uptown Girl from Billy Joel. And the whole audience, when I would go like this, Uptown Girl, the whole audience would copy what I was doing. The whole audience is going Uptown. Then I was only 8, 9 years old then, and that was just like, wow, that might have been my first taste of music that I thought this is maybe something I could do in the future.
Yeah, I know. And what I love about that as well is that once you've got the bug, it's an addiction, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Something that you just like, even if I wanted to stop doing music now, I just can't.
Yeah.
I just got to keep going until whatever happens happens.
Yeah, no, extraordinary. So, how did you make that progression then from performing as a little un in front of your schoolmates to the professional career?
It's still a journey. This is 20 plus years ago. I've done music, recorded music, and then stopped for a few years, and then continued and stopped and continued. And just in the last 2 years or so, I've been recording almost every week in the studio, and just doing so much music to the point where now I'm going to an award show next month, nominated for Best Hip Hop Song of the Year at the Josie Music Awards. But it's a transition. It's something. It's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. You
Yeah,
know.
and I think that's the key as well. And a lot of artists, they can't afford to do the artist side permanently. They've got to put food on the table. So you balance a thriving home inspection business with recording over 100 songs. You say you're a prolific songwriter. What's one mundane inspection mishap that perhaps has accidentally sparked a lyric in prescription to rap?
Well, as far as in inspections, you can go inside of a home that, you think might not have anybody living in there because it appears vacant, and then there might be a squatter inside, and you need to defend your life, or you need to really be careful, and that could definitely spark a song of survival, you know?
So tell me, what is people will be a bit puzzled about this home inspection business. What does it actually entail?
So a lot of these inspections we're doing are for, you'd be surprised, a lot of people are behind in their mortgage, in all affluent neighborhoods, economically challenged neighborhoods, and we're inspecting tens of thousands of homes where people are behind in their mortgage. And sometimes you'll take photos of their homes, and even the homeowner doesn't even know, like, why are you here? They don't even, they're not even aware of their situation, which is pretty surprising to me. But that's it is what it
So
is.
it's quite so you basically do the steps before they might be evicted.
Yeah, and but in the state of New York, it could take up to 7, 8, 9 years for that to happen because there's so many homes in the system, that the courts have to get to. So we're returning to some of these homes every single month for 6, 7 years, and hopefully they get this keep their home, without getting evicted. Because if you could just start paying your mortgage again, the loaner companies are pretty, they'll work with you. But I guess a lot of times people have cash businesses. Sometimes they could pay for a few months and then they have a dry season and then they can't pay for several months or up to a year, and then they become in that state again.
Yeah, and it's a really tough business. It's one I don't think many people would be able to do because you must hear so many heartbreaking stories. How do you personally cope with those?
You don't have so much interactions during the day when we primarily work. A lot of people are at work, and you don't have too much. And it's not like we're not the law. We're not asking them why aren't you paying or what's going the situation. We're just there to verify and report: is this house occupied? Is it vacant? Is there damage and things like that. We're not there to do an investigation or interview, anything like that. So we fortunately we don't hear so much stories, and that's probably better because I would hate to take home with me even more drama of what's going. I have things in my own life. It's hard for me to pay my mortgage. So it's I don't want to have to deal with hundreds of other people's stories as well if I don't
Yeah.
have to.
And I think that's the thing is that being able to sleep at night, knowing that you've thrown
Mhm.
somebody out, must be
Yeah,
incredibly tough.
yeah, and I haven't had to. That's not my job. So
That's not your part of it. But
no.
people will be watching this and thinking, okay, look, they're doing the inspection so that that gets reported back. What's the
Mm.
best advice you would give to people who are in that situation at the moment?
On the other end or on my end?
But both ends, I think, is fascinating because people don't necessarily know they get themselves in a really difficult situation. You
Yeah.
come knocking at the door, you do the inspection, or
Mm.
whatever. What's the best advice for them?
Yeah, for them, for us going there and taking photos of their house, obviously we're not the sheriff or we're not the law, so we're there to let them know, maybe give them a warning to let them, to say, hey, we're taking photos of your house on behalf of the loaner company. So, you might want to get on top of that. So maybe it's just like a wake up call in a positive sense, for them to see, like, look, they're taking photos of our house. They're leaving a notice at our house. That's not a good thing. So maybe it'll just wake them up a little more to try to get on top of things.
But you would encourage people to have that conversation because if people have the conversation, they might be able to buy a bit more time or come to some sort of arrangement.
Yeah, but I wouldn't actually, like, I wouldn't have that conversation with them. It's just not my place, or I don't know if I'm authorized to even talk about, because sometimes we're going to these houses, they're refinancing, they're in default, or it could be a few different types of things they're doing that I'm not even privy to. So it might not even be specifically they're in default, or they could be refinancing, they could be looking for an extended loan, or it could be an insurance loss. We do those also.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not the stuff that you deal with, and I think you're, by the sounds of it, you're quite relieved it's not what you're.
Yeah, yes. I don't want to be the sheriff, and because you see, like in Florida and those states, if you're not paying your mortgage for like a month or two, you'll come home and all your stuff will be on the front lawn, and that's crazy and it's sad. So yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be part of that.
No, but it's life in terms of how it reflects. And the reason I'm laboring this, if you like, is that I'm always fascinated about the process as a songwriter. And songs such as "Take Me Down to the Water" and "Life Again," they capture the raw edge of heartbreak turning into hope. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, life, it has its ups and downs, and you're gonna probably have maybe a mix of both. Hopefully, you have more ups than downs, but sometimes you have more downs than ups. But even with the downs that you have, it's always gonna turn better at some point, hopefully. And you just have to appreciate those times. Sometimes when you have down times, the appreciation of those down times and learning from those down times can bring you more light, and that's just life. And like in the songs Life Again and Take Me Down to the Water, there's a mix of both. You see, you have to deal with your parents getting old, you have to deal with death, you have to deal with health issues, but at the same time you deal with birth, and you deal with babies and you deal with raising kids, and those are good times. So we have to really just appreciate all those times because you're going to experience all of them.
Yeah, and I think that's right, isn't it? I mean, this is why songs which are relatable, those are the ones which really drive home. You have artists such as Ed Sheeran, is just bring it right back about raw human emotion, or even people like Britney Spears. I know different genres, but they're talking about real human emotions, and that's what's relatable to people, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody, regardless of your stature or your financial situation, everyone deals with death, everyone deals with sickness, and when it comes time to it, at the end of the day, you could have as much money in the world, but you have to have good health. You can't really pay for that, so and your family, your times with them, a lot of those times are memorable and priceless, and money really doesn't play a factor in that, so and everyone, regardless of their celebrity status, we're all human, we all bleed the same, so that's important.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I always say that we are all the same. I have a lot of very famous people on this show come and talk about their own experience. And if you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh? And it's relatable experiences that sort of drive it, isn't it? So what's one particular scar that on your own personal life then you've turned into a memorable song?
um a scar. I just say growing up um in my 20s or so, late teens, I dealt with a lot of depression and anxiety, and a lot of times you don't know how to channel that those situations, and you don't know how to react to them. And I've learned over the years that doing things that you love, really being proactive in those things, and with me that it became music, doing those things can really take away those negative feelings. Maybe not permanently, but it will really help in those situations. And if you're able to channel that and put that with me into my music, it can really take away those negative feelings that you have. And sometimes people have those things for life, and they're struggled with those things for life, and they can't maybe get a good job, or they can't be in a good relationship because they're just so overburdened with those things. And with me, I've been able to bottle that up and use it for positive
Yeah,
things.
and it's so important. And as I say, I often encourage people on the show, especially those in the public eye, to speak about the challenges that they have because it helps so many other people. I want us. I mean, if you break a leg, you can get a car. Somebody comes along and signs it, and they make a joke about it, whatever. But if you've got some mental troubles or you've got some issues because you're depressed or whatever, there used to be a sort of stigma, and I want us to be the generation that talks about mental health so that the next generation doesn't suffer that stigma.
Yeah, and in the past, you didn't really hear about it too much. You heard about artists maybe committing suicide or having a drug overdose, but then you didn't know that they were dealing with that for so long. You hear about it after the fact, but you didn't know or hear about it during their career that they were dealing with this. And if they did speak about it or maybe had it in their music, some of them maybe would be here today still.
Yeah.
sadly, or happily they would be here, and it's just like we never talk about in the past, I'm going to see a therapist or I'm going to talk to someone. And now it's more welcome now because mental health is such a big issue that you see that it's not just crazy people it's everybody has, you know, mental health issues. And I wouldn't call it a sickness or things like that. It's just things that people deal with where they can't really talk to their family member or a friend, where they need to speak to a professional. And with that, with health insurance and things like that, you can get the proper help just from talking to someone to deal with it and work with those things out, where it can make you a better, more productive person and just come out for the better.
Yeah, I know it's so important. So in terms of people watching this, there will be a lot of those nodding away merrily, saying, "Yes, he's absolutely right." What have you found the best sort of coping mechanisms have been?
Um, I touched on it. I feel that, well, a few things. One, if you're able to speak to somebody that you could really get out things that are troubling you or bothering you, that it's important to find someone that's good. There's a million therapists, but it's like, you can't just pick one out of a hat and speak to someone. So if you could find someone that you could really speak to, that's something good. But at the same time, also, if you're able to find something that you truly love to do, like for me, it was music. And while or I play basketball, and while I'm doing music or playing basketball, I'm not thinking about my bills or my wife if I'm having it or my kids. I'm not really thinking about those problems so much. I'm really just focusing on I missed that shot or I didn't lay that verse down right. Though I'm thinking about those things, and it's channeling my problems that I had. It's taking those away, and it's going into that, which is more positive. And not to say you want to do that all the time, because in reality, then you have to go back to your family, you have to go back to your own problems. But when you're able to do positive things like that, um it fast forwards to the rest of your life. And when you go back to those other things, you have that positive mind state with you where it could carry over and it could maybe shed some more positive light to the other situations that you have to deal with.
Yeah, sound advice. I mean, there's always that sort of moment, is it sort of self-discovery, isn't it? And looking back at your life. And so, if you could rewrite one line from your early poetry days into a track today, knowing what you know about self-discovery, and you've got that big journey of realization, what would it be?
A line. I don't know. I don't know if I would rewrite any lines. I feel like we put lines out or we say things, people say, "Do you regret what you said that time?" Or did you no, I think even if it's something that I wish I didn't say at the moment, it's something you learn from in the future to even, every single day, sometimes you have misunderstandings with people, like even especially through text message, right? You write something to them and they're like, they'll write you back and they say, "What, I don't like what you said when you said that," but they didn't hear your tone of voice or they didn't, because you're texting, so I feel like I wouldn't rewrite any specific line and change it for the future. I think it's just a thing to learn from. If you look back and you cringe, you say, "Oh, I wish I didn't say that." Well, then now you know in the future not to say that,
Yeah.
because you wrote it in the past.
Yeah, and you're so right now. I know that we always call these smart phones, but I think the more we use them, the dumber we become, and we're lousy now at proper communication because you've got this emoji, and it doesn't quite, as you wisely pointed out, sound the same in text. We need to be
Mhm.
able to communicate much better with people, don't we?
Yeah, it seems like the easier way of communication now, which is so easy to do through text or email, it's becoming more of a miscommunication on a lot of things, and especially with people that you're not so friendly with, or so, maybe they're not your family, they don't know you very well, and then you text something, and then they take it the wrong way, and then you're like you're in a fight with them, over a text message because and then you want to call them, and then they don't want to pick up the phone because they misunderstood a text. It's bizarre.
Yeah, no, it's certainly bizarre. I often say that perception and reality are rarely aligned. So if you're not sure about something, pick up the phone, speak to
Hmm.
them, and ask them, "Is this really what you meant?" Because so often people
Yeah.
get the tone wrong or the text, and people have forgotten how to communicate. You see people in restaurants now, and rather than talking to each other like you and I are doing, they're on their phones all the time, working out, swiping this and swiping left, and
Hmm.
they're digital addicts, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. Like people walking down the street and you have to say, wait, you're about to walk in the middle of traffic because they're so staring at their phone and they don't see that cars are coming towards them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it's also that the probably part of the problem is it's a community and that needs to bring up a child, and you look at the family life now, and everybody's cocooned in their own bubbles, aren't they? They've all got their little own screens. They go to their own rooms and watch their programs. Getting families together is really difficult now.
I heard that they're gonna the newer generations are looking towards disconnecting where if they're gonna go on a hike, to leave their phone, or if you're gonna go into a concert or a restaurant, you put your phone like in a locker, or like you check your coat. Instead of checking your coat, you check your phone, so you could actually be connected and present with what you're doing because it's become such a disconnection with phones for sure.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I was in Rome fairly recently, and there's a restaurant there. I think a number of restaurants are doing this now. That if you lock away your phone for the course of the meal, they'll give you a free bottle of wine for the table.
Yeah, it just enhances the whole experience if you're able to just not be, staring at your phone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
got to be
sure.
good. And it encourages, I mean, communication is really key for collaboration. But collaborating with Queen's icons like Royal Flush must have felt like a homecoming for you. What's the wildest studio argument that you had that maybe a beat that ended up making Prescription to rap stronger?
There is a really a rapper that we grew up with, and he's kind of like our Yoda because he's so experienced and so prolific in his rhymes. And we did a song with him recently, a few months ago, and we just felt that he didn't fit the song. Like he did his verse, but then he didn't fit it, and we took him off the song. And he was not happy with us taking him off the song. And and even to this day, we're friends and we've been buddies for 20 plus years, but he'll still say, "You took me off that song," and it's funny, but at the same time, I know he's really upset at because we released the song and a lot of people like the song, and he's not on it, and he that's probably one of the newest things that's happened, but you get into arguments a lot, in the studios. Someone's recording, especially if they're recording a song for me and they're in the studio with me. A lot of times prior, you don't hear their verse of what they wrote. You trust that when they go in there, they're gonna do their verse and you're gonna enjoy it and it's gonna be fine. But often, you have to stop and say, take that line out or take that out, and with art it can become very sensitive, because artists, they don't like to be told, take this line out or change that. And with my songs, sometimes I'm very I can micromanage it a little too much, or because you want it to sound a certain type of way. So if you tell the artist to take something out of the song, they could get mad, and say, I don't want to take that line out, or I meant this, I didn't mean that. If you say, I don't like what you said there, or, so that happens sometimes in the studio.
Oh no, it happens all the time with people that are trying to deal with sort of conflicts and things like that. So how do you manage? What's the best sort of techniques and tactics you like for managing those sort of conflicts?
Tact. Just try to be tactful and just try to, no one wants to hear someone say to them, that wasn't good, or, you know, sometimes my friends, I'll send them some of my songs and they'll say to me even like, no, I didn't like that beat, or I didn't, it's better to say that's, for me personally, I don't love that, but I like what you say here. I like what you want to put a compliment in something instead of just tearing it down. So, you could say, look, your delivery is great on that line there, but that one word you said here, if you could switch it a little bit, it's a lot of times it's the way you say things as opposed to just going at something and that's with everything, it's
Yeah.
not just with music.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right, isn't it? They always say, look, give a couple of words of praise before you give one word of criticism. I
hmm
think you look on that sort of basis. Let's talk about performance then, because on stage you deliver this powerful personal energy. Talk to me about a gig where the crowd's reaction literally changed the song's meaning for you mid-performance.
Uh, I remember it was a while back, but we were doing a show in the Bronx and it was at a gentleman's club and we were doing a song and the prior act they did a song over one of the most popular songs that were out at the time over that beat. And then when we came on, we were doing an original song, and the crowd really wasn't into it, because of the fact that they never heard our song, and it was like they were looking at us like, who are these guys? But we performed well and everybody enjoyed it. But sometimes you have to pivot. The every crowd is different and people just they might not like your music, they might like it, but the fact that you're showing up and you're trying and people appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about gentlemen's clubs and all sorts of unusual venues that people play at. What's the most unexpected place you've performed?
Um, the street corner. You know, you you see some people on the street, in the neighborhood sometimes, and you go. It's called battling, and you go to battle them, and you never know who could walk by. You never know who's gonna come into it, and it could be a very unpredictable situation. But especially in hip hop music, that's something that is part of the culture where it's called battling or ciphering, and even with your friends, it could be six of them, and then five more come in, and you're doing a rap, and then someone else comes in, and you're going back and forth, and there's no rules there, so there's no it's not a venue, and that could be very challenging and but at the same time super fun.
Yeah. So people looking to get into rap, I mean, what's the best way to hone their art?
Pick up a pad and a pen and just even poetry. A lot of people transition from poetry into hip hop and spoken word, so sometimes people do that first and then after that they say, you know what, let me try to put this to some music, and they actually see I could be, actually I'm a rapper and I never even knew it. So I think just
I'm a
picking up a
poet and
pad
I
and a
never
pen,
know it. That's what
right? Pick up a pad and a pen and just start writing, and then from there you'll never know what it could be. It doesn't even need to, it could be your memoirs, some just thoughts, because a lot of songs are stories. And so you could write, I used to write a diary. I used to have memoirs from like 11, 12 years old, just writing down thoughts of the days, and that could become actual songs for sure.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because you say it's what makes it so successful is when it's authentic and it's about your personal life, those trials and tribulations and trauma. Do you get embarrassed talking about things in public?
No, everybody deals with different things. You're this if I was, I wouldn't write the songs that I write. So a lot of people, they in their songs they don't talk about personal things because they don't want that to be public. And but I choose to. So I feel like I don't talk about everything that's in my life, but the things I do talk about, I feel like it's for everyone to hear, and it lets the public know a little more about you and gets to know you better. And with that, a lot of people, they like an artist more when they feel like they know them, as opposed to just I like their song. So if you can get to know that artist, and that's advice for artists also, if people could get to know you, especially through social media, not just play your song, but take them around your day, or show them around your house or your kids or your friends, and then they'll really get to know you and your personality, and they'll fall in love with that. Then they'll want to hear your music as opposed to hearing your music first, and vice versa.
Yeah. So if your whole catalogue, and it's quite extensive now, vanished tomorrow, which one track would you fight to save and why?
At this point, I think it would be Take Me Down to the Water. I feel like that's one of my best songs that I recorded as far as it goes. It's just pretty much a timeline of my whole life up to now. And, if people didn't know much about me or what's important to me or what I value, if they listen to that song, they'll get to know exactly who I am and the things that are important to me and the things that I've gone through and the things that I love and I would choose that song.
Okay. And now you've built momentum, blending timeless storytelling with contemporary sounds. Fast forward 5 years, what's the boldest risk that you're going to be taking?
Uh, the boldest risk. Maybe being in a movie, like not even an independent movie, but like a big movie with some big time actors and being on the big screen, or being in a scripted television show. I think that would be something that I would like to do. But I could see that being risky, because it's like you don't write the scripts for that. And, sometimes that's the thing. I was like, if I'm in a movie and they play me a role as this, or they want me to, you can't tell the director I'm not doing that, or that I don't want to say that, So I think for me that would be very something that I would be apprehensive to do, but I think it would be exciting, kind of jumping in deep waters that you've never been in and you don't know what's in the water when
Okay,
you do
no,
it.
no, absolutely. Well, good luck with that. So, but people will be watching this and say, right, we're going to sign him up for this. Fantastic stuff. Now, outside of music, then, what non-musical passion, I know, painting or cooking, secretly fuels your songwriting?
Um, my son, he's really good in basketball, and I like coaching him, and I like coaching his teams, and he's only 11, but I would love to see him advance. And with that, it's like you never know how good he could be, and that's a journey I like to take with him. And I like coaching too. I really actually I don't love it, but he wants me to coach his team. And with that, I'm learning, how to deal with younger kids and how to motivate them, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. What does he think of your music?
He likes it. He's a critic too. He's very much like I was when I was his age. I knew a lot about music, and so he'll let me know if I need to do something a certain way or maybe rap over a beat differently. He has a good ear for that, and I could see him doing music in the future.
Oh, fantastic.
Or if not doing music, being behind the scenes in it because he knows his stuff.
Okay. Well, it's always good to surround yourself with critics. It helps improve things. Finally, three very quick questions then. What's your proudest moment?
Probably having kids, and raising them. I always wanted to be a father, but you never know if it's going to happen. And I have a beautiful daughter and a beautiful son, and they're doing great. And watching them grow up every day and the challenges they go through and the things you need to teach them, it's probably my proudest moment.
Yeah, I have to say that my children are my best productions ever. I think work on that basis has got to be good. Biggest regret?
Biggest regret is probably not pursuing the music, um, and continuing it at an earlier age. I've been doing music since my teenage years, but like I mentioned, I've often stopped for years and then continued and then stopped. Um, that's probably my biggest regret, maybe just not pursuing it earlier in my life, pursuing it and not stopping.
Okay, no, no, good advice. Why did you pick the name Ben Bacardi?
I picked the name Ben Bacardi because I had different names in the past, and at the time when I chose this name, aliases were a big thing in hip hop. You had the Wu-Tang Clan, and they all chose alias names on top of their names. And so I also the mafia, like mafioso sound was very big in hip hop. and a lot of artists chose like a Al Capone, but not Al Capone, like Bob Capone, you know, a
Yeah.
play off of
Or
Al
Alco
Capone. And
Pops you can have.
yeah,
So,
and so at the time, I was thinking I need to choose a different name. You know, I need to have a different name. And I was drinking some Bacardi at the
ah,
time we were doing some music, and I was enjoying the drink, and I said Ben Bacardi, you know, and the name just stuck.
yeah.
And you know, a lot of times you think of something and it doesn't stick, but that stuck, and
That's
it's
stuck.
stayed ever since.
No, absolutely. Are they sponsoring you yet?
They're not, but you know,
Not yet. It's an
if you're
appeal.
listening to this, you know, I'll be in commercials for free for a few of them, but then after that, my rate goes up.
Oh, brilliant. I love it. It's got to be good. And finally, then, if you were to write a letter to yourself as you're starting out, the young Ben Bacardi, when you're probably on a non-alcoholic version, what advice would you give to yourself?
I say that life is short and it goes by very, very fast, and just try to do what you love and do what makes you happy, and don't be afraid to take risks. A lot of times people they won't do something because they're afraid or they don't know what's on the other side of the door. But if you follow through with it, you'll see that on the other side of the door could be beautiful things and it can make you very happy. But if you're afraid to take that risk or open that door, you'll never know. And, you know, that's what I'd tell my younger self.
Brilliant stuff. Ben Bacardi, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Hey, this is Ben Bacardi, New York City hip hop up and coming artist. You're on the Andrew Eborn Show. Tune in and subscribe.